I'm here today with Charlotte Wood, the author of Animal People. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about that, because I do remember that when you were writing this book, you did go off to the zoo to do some research. So what were you looking at? You clearly were looking at the people more than you were looking at the animals.
I mean, I've been to lots of zoos in the course of writing this book, and I highly recommend a trip to the zoo to watch the people, because it's very amusing. And, you know, when I started writing Animal People, I thought I was writing a comedy. And I wanted to try it because I thought it would be a challenge sort of artistically and that it would be just an interesting and fun thing to do. And of course I found it's very hard to write comedy, but I also found that actually there was quite a lot of serious stuff underlying our relationships with animals in contemporary urban life that I find a lot of it's very sad, and there's this huge denial going on. But so at the zoo, for example, you will often find that people appear to be quite obsessed with getting the animals to look at them.
I thought that was one of the most fascinating observations you made, this thing of saying, look, he's looking at us, he's looking at you.
He wants to say hello to you.
Yes.
He's coming over. You see it over and over again, that people feel that they kind of not getting their money's worth in a way if the animal isn't coming to look at me. And it's kind of weird and narcissistic and odd, I think. But initially I chose the zoo, kind of just plucked it out of the air. I needed him to have a job. I thought about people I knew who'd had, you know, ordinary kind of jobs and that weren't careers. And, you know, an old boyfriend of mine used to work at the zoo as a sandwich hand. And it was kind of, I thought it could be useful for comic effect because, you know, people would say, where do you work? And he'd say, at the zoo. And they'd say, oh, wow, you know, are you the lion keeper? And he'd say, no, I just put chips in a fryer, you know. So there's this kind of playfulness about that. But I also thought, having been to the zoo and watched people a lot, that it's an excellent place for sort of family meltdown scenes, because, which I don't think I ended up even really using in the book, but, you know, the sort of family outing that's supposed to be full of fun and, you know, love can often turn out to be extremely stressful.
Yes, can end in tantrums, tears
between the adults as much as between the children.
But it's interesting.
So that it morphed into this bigger theme.
Because I took it as Stephen's inability to understand the way people fetishize animals and sentimentalize animals was to me symptomatic of his alienation from the human race. Very much so. And what he doesn't understand, that, you know, the reader hopefully does, as you have, that his sort of fear of and discomfort with animals is actually a fear of and discomfort with life, and with the kind of unruliness of life and the messiness of life and the unpredictability of what happens when you love someone, for example, when you are called upon to do things that you might not particularly like, you know, in order to you know, you put yourself out for other people. Stephen's not the sort of person who puts himself out much.